Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever stepped out your door in the city, seen a flash of color or movement, and thought, wow, there's incredible wildlife right here? We're not talking about just pigeons and rats. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the truly fascinating world of urban bird photography. We've pulled together a stack of your sources, from professional photography guides and ethical frameworks to real-world discussions to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge for capturing stunning images of our feathered city dwellers. Our mission today is to equip you with the insights and tools to get those aha moments, whether you're just curious about the birds around you or, looking to truly elevate your photography game.
Indeed, and what's so compelling here is how urban environments aren't just concrete barriers. They actually present unique opportunities and challenges for capturing wildlife. We'll explore how to leverage the concrete jungle for truly compelling shots, and crucially, how to do so responsibly.
For many of us, urban wildlife photography brings to mind maybe a fox scurrying by or perhaps a rat in the alley. But your sources reveal a surprisingly rich variety of urban bird species. What makes these city birds such interesting subjects? And, well, how broad is our definition of urban in this context?
Well, city birds are often far more habituated or, accustomed to humans than their rural cousins. This makes them much easier to approach, which is a fantastic opportunity to try different photographic techniques, maybe get close to species that are usually very wary, or even just test out new camera gear.
Ah,
And when we say urban, we're not just talking about massive high-rise metropolises. It really includes towns, villages, even new housing estates, essentially, anywhere with those telltale human components like buildings, roads, and that persistent human activity.
right. So if you're out and about, camera in hand, where should you really start looking for these feathered residents? What are the hot spots?
Your sources consistently point to places where humans serve and eat food outside. Think bustling markets, street food vendors, maybe outside pubs or restaurants, even grocery stores where spills are common. Parks are also prime locations, especially around picnic areas or bins where, scraps might be found.
Makes sense.
And don't forget any green space like churchyards or old graveyards or any bodies of water within parks, which will naturally attract waterfowl like ducks and geese.
I'm curious, what are some of the most common species you're likely to encounter in these spots? And are there any, surprising ones that have really made the city their own?
Oh, yeah, you'll definitely see plenty of pigeons, gulls, starlings, crows, blackbirds, house sparrows, magpies, the usual suspects.
Mhm.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Even the fastest animal on the planet, the peregrine falcon, calls our cities home.
Welly.
Yeah. Those tall buildings and church spires perfectly mimic their natural cliff-top nesting environments. London, for example, is actually believed to have one of the world's largest urban peregrine falcon populations.
That's incredible.
And sometimes you'll find birds in incredibly obscure spots, like missel thrushes nesting right on top of a traffic light.
That's wild.
Hmm.
But your sources also mentioned that fieldcraft, essentially how you approach and interact with wildlife, needs a complete rethink for urban settings. Why is that? What's different?
It's a great question because it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Why would birds that happily let screaming kids walk right by get skittish the moment a photographer with a camera shows up?
Exactly.
Well, you, with your big lens, you become the anomaly in their everyday environment, so the advice is actually to be bold.
Bold, okay.
Yes, stay upright until you absolutely need to be eye level, and surprisingly, don't worry too much about muted clothes or a silent approach. You'll often blend in much better by acting like any other person because they're used to the general noise and movement of city life. Trying to be super stealthy just makes you stand out more.
So if being a normal, bold human is the approach, let's talk about the gear. Beyond the camera itself, what should you have in your bag for urban bird photography?
Well, binoculars are always useful for quick identifications, definitely.
Hmm.
But one surprising aspect here is the versatility of lenses. While long telephoto lenses are the absolute standard for bird photography in wild natural places, urban environments allow for incredibly creative wide-angle shots precisely because subjects are more habituated.
Ah, okay. Wide angle for birds.
Exactly. These wider lenses let you immerse the viewer in the scene, really showcasing the bird's adapted behaviors in unusual man-made surroundings.
And you even mentioned remote triggered setups as a possibility. That sounds pretty advanced. How would that work in a city?
Yeah, it can be. Imagine using a wide-angle lens with maybe a pop of fill flash among supermarket trolleys where crumbs often fall. You can set up your camera and trigger it remotely to capture a truly unique perspective. However, I must emphasize, you should never leave your camera equipment unattended in public spaces. That's just asking for trouble.
Right. Good point. But I'd imagine those traditional long lenses still have their place, right? Not every bird is going to be conveniently located by the grocery store.
Oh, absolutely. A 70-200 millimeter lens, for instance, can help you be less conspicuous in crowded areas, allowing for different compositions. And longer lenses, 400 millimeters and above, are still vital for isolating subjects further away or getting those tightly framed shots. Many advanced photographers, if building a kit from scratch, would still recommend lenses of at least 500 millimeters or more for bird photography generally to capture those really frame-filling images.
That makes sense. So when choosing a lens, what's the overarching advice, and how do technical considerations like crop factor play into that decision?
The overarching advice is pretty consistent. Buy the best and longest lens you can possibly afford. It really does make a difference.
Right.
For a full-frame camera, 400 millimeters or more is a good starting point. Now, crop sensor cameras like an APS-C, which has about a 1.6x crop factor, or maybe OM system bodies with a 2x crop, they effectively increase your focal length.
Right, they make the lens seem longer.
Exactly. So a 300 millimeter lens on an OM system body gives you a field of view equivalent to a 600 millimeter on a full-frame camera, which is great for reach. But while this can be a huge advantage for getting extra reach without a physically massive lens, it's also like trying to capture a hummingbird with a magnifying glass sometimes. Your field of view becomes so narrow it can make framing fast-flying birds incredibly difficult, especially at close quarters.
I see. Trade-offs.
Always trade-offs. Prime lenses, the ones with a fixed focal length, are often lauded for their sharpness, though modern zoom lenses are also incredibly high quality these days. And just be aware that teleconverters, while they increase focal length like a 1.4x converter, makes a 400 millimeter f2.8 lens into a 560 millimeter f4, they will cost you stops of light.
Meaning the lens gets darker.
Essentially, yes. Less light reaches the sensor, which can slow down autofocus, especially in dimmer conditions. And while tripods are useful in low light, being nimble and maneuverable is often more important in a dynamic urban setting.
Yeah.
You might miss the shot fumbling with tripod legs.
So we've got the right tools, but even the best camera can't make up for bad light, especially in the city with all those tricky shadows and, neon glow. How do we use that light to our advantage?
Yeah, urban environments can definitely be dark and shaded, so a wider aperture is really advised, a minimum of f4, but ideally having something like an f2.8 lens in your bag if possible. This isn't just for isolating your subject with that nice blurry background. It's crucial for achieving fast enough shutter speeds to freeze motion, especially with birds.
Right.
Nighttime, however, offers truly fantastic urban bird photography opportunities. All those neon lights, dramatic silhouetted shapes. When shooting late into the evening and relying on ambient lights, you'll need to let in as much light as possible through your camera settings, maybe by increasing your ISO, opening up that aperture.
What about trying in something different with movement, embracing that dynamism that's so inherent in city life? How do you capture that without just getting a blurry mess?
Motion blur.
Yes, a flow shutter speed can really add dynamism and interest to an image, or even a whole portfolio, especially with flocks or birds in flight. For example, there's a shot mentioned of starlings roosting under a pier in Aberystwyth, captured at f4 in around 110th of a second. It beautifully brought out their shuffling, murmuration-like movement.
Cool.
The urban environment offers such varied lighting. You get constant light, predictable light, moving light, fleeting light, all of which can combine with natural light to create amazing creative possibilities for silhouettes. Imagine capturing pied wagtails at Heathrow, silhouetted dramatically against all those terminal lights.
When I think urban wildlife photography, my mind often goes to muted tones, grays, browns. But our sources hint at something truly unexpected: the vibrant potential for color. What is it about the city?
It's remarkable, isn't it? Vibrant colors exist to a greater scale and frequency in urban environments than you might expect. When you're scouting for new compositions, you'll likely find that colors are often the first thing that jumps out at you.
So look for color deliberately. Yes. Actively look for complementary or contrasting colors to your subject, and think about how you might utilize what you see. Is the color solid, part of a building, maybe best used as a clean background? Or is it from a light source, like a neon sign or a traffic light, that could be used as a backlight for a silhouette? Or maybe it's even strong enough to reflect color onto your subject's feathers.
Interesting.
One example given is lining up a kingfisher with a set of traffic lights directly behind it, or capturing an eider duck with a vibrant red fishing boat as its backdrop to create that strong urban feel.
And the background itself. That's a key compositional element in any nature photography, but perhaps even more critical in urban bird photography. How do we make the most of it without it just being, well, messy?
That brings up a crucial point. The background and surroundings are some of the most formative components of an urban bird photo. They really tell the story. Actively look for interesting textures, colors, shapes, or even text that you can incorporate into the scene to add that unique sense of place.
Like tech.
Yeah, for instance, a black redstart photographed in a new housing development was intentionally captured with an NHS logo in the background. The photographer adjusted the aperture to f6.3 specifically to ensure the sign was readable and part of the narrative. To be truly an urban bird photo, there should ideally be something man-made in the frame, even if it's just a hint or a subtle blur in the distance. Conversely, you can also take incredibly wild-feeling photos right within urban parks by just focusing on the natural patches and avoiding man-made elements if that's the aesthetic you prefer. Lots of flexibility.
Okay, so many amateur photographers, myself included sometimes, wonder about the secrets of pros, how they choose places, set up, and almost seem to summon birds. I'm guessing a huge part of that is just patience. Is it really that simple or maybe that hard?
Patience and persistence are absolutely essential. You can't overstate it. Birds are incredibly fickle. Often you'll be waiting for hours for absolutely nothing to happen, but that's simply part of the process. You have to accept that. One photographer recounted watching an osprey for 4 hours, only for it to fly off in the complete opposite direction. It happens.
Oh, man.
Beyond patience, though, it's also important to truly understand the birds themselves. Learning about their habitats, the best times to find certain species, and even predicting their behaviors is crucial. You can use apps like Merlin or eBird to find local birding hotspots and get an idea of what's active in your area. That helps narrow things down.
So you've found your spot. You've waited.
Yeah.
But then, the actual approach. Many struggle with birds flying off too soon. How do you get close enough for a good shot without scaring them away?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question sometimes. Approach slowly and, if possible, somewhat obscured by trees or other cover. Don't just march straight at them. The critical rule is this. If your approach causes a bird to flush, meaning it flies or runs away, or if it even just visibly changes its behavior, like getting agitated, you are too close. Immediately back away.
Okay, respect their space.
Absolutely. Birds will often repeat behaviors, though, so if you miss a shot, be patient. They might return to the same perch or feeding spot if you give them space. Some photographers will take a few documentation shots at a greater distance while slowly approaching, stopping the moment the bird gets nervous, just to have something. Also, interestingly, some birds seem to dislike having camera lenses pointed directly at them. Seems threatening, maybe. So raise your lens slowly and accurately when you're ready to shoot. And don't forget, consider using your car as a mobile blind. Animals often ignore vehicles when they'd flee from a person on foot.
Right, the car blind trick.
Yeah.
And what about the time of day? Does that really make a significant difference for urban birds, or are they just active all day because of the city lights and activity?
Oh, it makes a huge difference, definitely. For small songbirds like robins or blackbirds, dawn is the golden hour. That's when they're most energetically feeding and singing. Birds of prey like kestrels, buzzards, hawks, they're often most active mid-morning as they start gliding on thermals when the sun warms the day. For migratory birds like swallows or swifts, late afternoon and dusk are often best as they feed heavily before settling down for the night.
So different birds, different times.
Exactly. Generally, bird activity peaks across many species during breeding season, that's spring and early summer. And for those really dedicated shots, some photographers will show up long before sunrise to set up a blind and just wait for the perfect light and the birds to arrive.
Right. Dedication. Which brings us to perhaps the most foundational aspect of all bird photography. Ethics. Your sources really emphasize that respect for birds and their environment must always come first. How do we ensure that?
It's paramount. It has to be. The well-being of the birds and their habitats must always, always take precedence over a photographer's ambition for a great shot. No picture is worth harming a bird.
So what did that look like in practice?
Well, primarily using a telephoto lens and maintaining enough distance for the bird to behave naturally. That's key. Never intentionally make birds fly or change their behavior just for a picture. This disrupts their natural processes like resting, foraging, or hunting, and it wastes their precious energy. Always watch for signs of stress, like we said, freezing in place, adopting a pre-flight stance, alarm calls, and back away immediately if you see them.
What about using flashes or drones or even sharing specific locations of rare birds? These seem like areas where ethics could get, well, a bit tricky.
They are tricky areas. Use flash sparingly, really only as a supplement to natural light, and avoid it entirely for nocturnal birds like owls.
Yeah.
It can temporarily impair their ability to hunt or navigate in the dark.
Right. No flash on owls.
Definitely not. And never use drones to photograph birds, especially near nests. They are incredibly disruptive and stressful for birds, and they're actually illegal in many national and state parks for that reason.
Okay. Drones are out.
Pretty much, yeah. When sharing locations of rare or sensitive species online, think about the potential impact. Could a flood of people disturb the bird or its habitat? Always consider removing GPS data from your images and videos before posting.
Good practice.
Also, be cautious with remotely triggered cameras. Setting one up near a natural event like a fresh kill or an animal's cache is generally acceptable, but supplying bait or other lures to attract an animal like live or dead animals or processed meat is not advisable. It alters their natural behavior and can even introduce disease.
What about flash with those remote cameras, especially at night?
If using flash with remote cameras for hours, for example, it's recommended to use a filter that only lets infrared light through. Direct flash may temporarily blind them, which is obviously harmful.
Nesting birds seem particularly vulnerable and in need of extra care. What are the specific guidelines there?
They absolutely require extra consideration. Keep a respectful distance from the nest, a good rule of thumb. If you find yourself using a macro or wide-angle lens for a nest shot, you are almost certainly too close.
So, telephoto only for nests.
Telephoto lenses of at least 500 millimeter are highly recommended. And crucially, do not move or cut anything from around the nest, like branches or leaves. That foliage provides essential camouflage and protection from predators and the elements. Remember, prolonged human presence can prevent parents from leaving the nest to hunt, or from returning to feed their young, or even protect them from heat or cold.
And what about luring birds closer? I've seen a lot of discussion online about baiting or using bird calls. What's the consensus from the sources on that?
It's a key point of discussion, and often quite heated in the community. While bird feeding stations are generally acceptable if they're kept clean, stocked with appropriate food, and positioned with the bird's safety in mind.
Okay.
You should never lure predatory birds with bait, such as live or dead animals, processed meat, or decoys. This can seriously harm them by altering their natural hunting behavior, making them dependent, or introducing health risks.
And calls.
Yeah.
Playback.
Similarly, playback of bird calls should not be used. It can cause birds, especially during nesting season, to leave their nests vulnerable to predators or harsh weather conditions while they waste energy defending their territory from a perceived challenger that isn't actually there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Finally, what about respect for private property and other people, and ensuring transparency in how you share your work?
Absolutely vital. Always enter private land only with explicit permission, and be aware of all regulations on public property parks, reserves, etc. Be considerate of other photographers and birders who might be watching the same bird. Your desire for a photo doesn't outweigh their right to observe peacefully. If you're with a large group, you may need to keep an even greater distance from birds to minimize collective disturbance.
Right.
And when photographing at places like zoos, sanctuaries, or taking workshops, ensure they are properly accredited by recognized organizations that prioritize animal welfare.
And when sharing online?
Be honest. Always note in your caption if a bird is captive, and explain the circumstances if you can. Honesty and transparency build trust. It's important to always consider the appearance of ethics, because the image itself often communicates more strongly than the caption. Adhere to established standards like NAMPA's truth in captioning.
Okay, that's a lot to think about ethically, but so important. Yeah. Now, let's say you've done all that. You've captured your incredible ethical shots. What does the journey from camera to final shareable image actually look like? Post-processing.
Right, the digital darkroom phase. The first critical step, especially if you've been photographing birds in flight and have like thousands of shots.
Oh, yeah, been there.
Is culling your images. Using tools like Fast Raw Viewer, which lets you quickly view your raw files, the camera's untouched digital negatives is great for rapidly examining sharpness, detail, exposure. Get rid of the blurry ones, the badly composed ones. The goal is to only import the definite keepers or maybes into your main editing system like Lightroom. It saves a huge amount of time and disk space.
Good tip. And then the actual processing begins. How How do you make them pop without looking, fake or overdone?
Lightroom is an excellent central hub for managing your images, keywording, location info, organizing everything. For the actual image processing, a good starting point is to turn off any default sharpening in Lightroom and make only minimal tone adjustments. Ideally, you got the exposure right in camera. And here's a pro tip mentioned. Crop your image slightly larger, maybe by about 10% than the final intended size early in your workflow.
Why is that?
It dramatically reduces noise processing time later on because the software has fewer pixels to analyze.
Ah, clever. And for noise itself,
Mm.
that can be a big issue, especially with those high ISO shots you sometimes need in dim urban light.
For noise reduction, a powerful software like Topaz Denoise AI, which uses artificial intelligence, is fantastic, especially if you're processing lots of images. You can typically apply just enough of noise, maybe around 50, for images up to ISO 3200, as one source suggests to smooth things out without losing crucial detail in the bird's feathers. After noise reduction, you could send the image to a program like On1 Photo Raw for what they call dynamic contrast treatment. This is pretty cool. It lets you adjust micro contrast at different detail levels. Small, medium, large. It can really make the bird pop and stand out visually from the background.
And you can apply that just to the bird.
Yeah, you can even use AI masking tools to apply these effects only to the bird and then maybe invert the mask to subtly reduce contrast or just the tone of the background without affecting the bird at all. Gives you lots of control. Finally, any small background distractions that you couldn't avoid when shooting can be removed carefully using clone stamp tools. The ultimate goal is always to produce images that are true to the scene, harmonious, visually pleasing, but don't look artificial or heavily manipulated.
So you see, urban bird photography isn't just about grabbing a quick snap. It's really a deep dive into technique, patience, and ethical practice, all happening right in your own backyard or maybe on your next city trip.
Yeah.
The opportunities are everywhere, whether it's the white storks of Marrakech mentioned in one source or Barcelona's monk parakeets.
It's remarkable how these urban environments can actually force new techniques upon you, compelling you to look for unique light, color, compositional elements that you might not even consider in wilder settings. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, by understanding and respecting the birds in these close contact settings, you inevitably gain a deeper appreciation for their resilience and adaptability. It's quite humbling.
So what stands out to you from today's deep dive? As you head out, camera in hand, what unexpected avian character might you discover thriving in the heart of your city? And maybe how will you use these insights to tell their unique story?